Sometimes a life can change in the space of a single heartbeat. A road you have traveled 100 times. A decision made in less than a second. A stranger whose name you have never heard. And suddenly, the future you had carefully planned no longer exists. This is the story of four lives brought together by one terrible moment. A grandfather who had already lost more than most people could bear. A young mother trying to raise the child her husband never got to meet. A woman standing only days away from the greatest opportunity of her career. And a little girl whose life would be shaped by sacrifices she would not understand for many years. But before the accident, before the grief, the guilt, and the truth that would remain hidden for 18 years, there was an ordinary morning. And for a little while, everyone was still happy. Soft, early September sunlight filtered through the maple trees and settled across the roof of a small wooden house on the outskirts of Portland. On the front porch, Michael Carter was bent over an old chair, carefully sanding one of its worn edges. He had recently turned 60. More than half his hair had gone gray. His back was no longer as straight as it once had been, and his weathered hands had begun to tremble whenever he held something for too long. But the moment Michael sat down in front of a piece of wood, he became the skilled carpenter he had been for most of his life. He ran his palm across the seat, checked each joint, then carefully smoothed away a rough corner. A woman's voice came from behind him. "Dad, you're working again." Michael did not need to turn around to know it was Anna. He kept moving the sandpaper across the wood. "I'm only fixing one little thing." Anna stepped down from the porch, carrying her 8-month-old daughter in her arms. "That's what you said yesterday. And the day before that." Michael looked up at his daughter and smiled. "If I spend the whole day sitting still, that's when you should start worrying." Anna was about to answer when Emily suddenly reached both of her tiny arms toward her grandfather. Michael immediately put the sandpaper down. Every trace of stubbornness disappeared from his face. "Come here, Grandpa's little doctor." Anna carefully placed the baby in his arms. Michael held Emily against his chest with both hands. She had the same blue-gray eyes as her father and the same small dimple as her mother. She stared at Michael for a moment, grabbed at the silver stubble on his chin, and burst into laughter. Michael laughed with her. It was one of the few sounds that could make him forget the dull ache in his chest. Anna watched them together. "If Emily is your doctor, then you have to follow her orders." Michael looked solemnly at his granddaughter. "Doctor, am I allowed to keep fixing my chair?" Emily only laughed and grabbed the collar of his shirt. "She didn't say no," Michael said. "That means I have permission." Anna shook her head. "You always find an excuse." Michael said nothing. He simply lowered his head and kissed the baby's soft hair. For that brief moment, the little house felt as though it had never known loss. But on the living room wall hung an old photograph. In it, Anna wore a white wedding dress and stood beside a man in military uniform. His name was David Miller. He had been Anna's husband, and he was the father Emily would never have the chance to meet. Michael had raised Anna on his own since she was 8 years old. His wife had died after a long illness, leaving him with a daughter too young to understand why her mother was never coming home. From that day forward, a man who understood wood, nails, and hammers had to learn how to be both a father and a mother. He learned how to braid hair. He learned how to cook the meals Anna liked. He learned the difference between the cry of a child who was hurt and the cry of a child who simply felt alone. On nights when Anna had a fever, Michael sat beside her bed until morning, changing the cold cloth on her forehead and whispering that everything would be all right. During the months when work was scarce, they lived on bread and thin soup so he could still afford her school books. Michael never complained. To him, Anna had never been a burden. She was the reason he kept getting out of bed every morning. Eventually, Anna grew up. She met David at a memorial service honoring local military personnel. David was not a man of many words, but whenever he smiled, there was a warmth in his eyes that made people feel safe. At first, Michael did not like the idea of his daughter falling in love with a soldier. It was not because he looked down on the profession. He simply understood that people who wore a uniform often had to belong to many others before they could fully belong to their own families. But David slowly changed his mind. He repaired the fence behind the house without being asked. He remembered the exact kind of tea Michael liked, and whenever he returned from duty, one of the first things he did was visit the wooden house, sit on the porch with Michael, and talk until the evening grew dark. On the day David asked for permission to marry Anna, Michael asked him only one question. "Are you sure you can protect her?" David met his eyes. "I can't promise that her life will never know pain, but I can promise she'll never have to face it alone." Michael believed him, and David truly tried to keep that promise. But life does not always give people enough time to fulfill the promises they make. When Anna was 4 months pregnant, David was sent to a region torn by conflict. He told her the assignment would last only a few weeks. On the morning he left, he knelt in front of Anna, rested his hand gently against her stomach, and whispered, "Wait for me, okay?" Then he stood and wrapped his arms around her. He held her longer than usual, as though some part of him already knew it might be their last embrace. 17 days later, 2 officers came to Michael's door. Anna was the one who answered. She saw their uniforms before either of them spoke. One of the men removed his hat. The other held a neatly folded letter. They told her David had been killed while protecting a convoy evacuating civilians from a combat zone. Anna did not move. Both hands tightened around the doorframe. Her face had gone pale. Michael stepped out of the house. The moment he saw the officers, he understood. He moved toward his daughter, but Anna did not look at him. She placed one hand over her stomach. The baby had just moved. It was the first reaction she had shown since the officers arrived. She lowered her head. "My little girl." Her voice trembled so badly that the words were almost lost. "From now on," Anna stopped and struggled to breathe. "I'll try to live enough for both of us." Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. He wanted to pull her into his arms. He wanted to tell her she did not have to be strong right now. But Anna turned toward him with eyes so dry they frightened him. "I'm okay, Dad. I still have the baby." She accepted the letter from the officer, thanked both men, and slowly walked into her bedroom. The door closed behind her. Michael remained outside. For the first few minutes, there was complete silence. He placed his hand on the doorknob but did not turn it. Then came a small, broken sob. So quiet it sounded as though Anna had used every ounce of strength to hold it back. A second sob followed. Then the grief broke free. It was the cry of a wife who had just lost her husband. The cry of a mother who understood that the child growing inside her would never feel her father's arms around her. Michael rested his forehead against the door. Tears ran down his face. but he did not go inside. He understood that there were some kinds of pain even a loving father could not carry for his child. All he could do was remain outside and make sure Anna knew that whenever she opened the door, he would still be there. After David's funeral, Anna moved back into Michael's house. She rarely spoke about her husband, but every night before going to sleep, she placed her phone on the table and listened to his old voice messages. In some of them, David talked about nothing important. He said the weather was unbearably hot. He complained that dinner had been terrible. He told her he had seen a child's toy in a shop window and thought about the baby he had not yet met. Anna listened to every message. Sometimes she smiled. Sometimes tears rolled down her cheeks, and she did not wipe them away. When Emily was born, the wooden house filled again with the cries of a baby, hurried footsteps in the middle of the night, and mornings made heavy by lack of sleep. Anna named her daughter Emily Grace Miller. In a small box beside her bed, she kept David's identification tags, several of his letters, and a photograph taken before his final deployment. Michael often woke before Anna to prepare the baby's bottle. He learned how to change diapers, how to soothe a crying infant, and how to tell the difference between a hungry cry and a tired one. Some nights he carried Emily around the living room for nearly an hour. One morning, Anna woke to find him sitting in a chair with Emily asleep in his arms. Michael was breathing heavily. She hurried toward him. "Your chest hurts again, doesn't it?" Michael shook his head. "I'm just a little tired." Anna placed her fingers against his wrist. "You say that too often. It doesn't sound believable anymore." Michael tried to make a joke so she would stop worrying, but the pain forced him to close his eyes for several seconds. Anna noticed. From that day on, she refused to let him postpone another doctor's appointment. The clinic was nearly 40 minutes from the house. On the way there, Emily slept in her old car seat in the back. Every few minutes, Michael turned to look at her. Anna noticed. "Sit still, Dad. You're going to wake her up." "I'm only checking to make sure she's breathing." "You've checked 5 times in the last 20 minutes. Michael smiled faintly. "When a baby gets too quiet, you worry." Anna did not argue. She knew that after losing David, her father had become afraid of sudden goodbyes. The doctor studied Michael's test results and electrocardiogram for a long time. He suggested that Anna take Emily outside for a moment, but Michael shook his head. "You can say it in front of my daughter." The doctor removed his glasses. "Your heart failure has progressed." Anna tightened her hands together. Michael remained calm. "How much has it progressed?" "You need to stop doing heavy work, take your medication on schedule, and avoid unnecessary stress." The doctor paused. "And you should not be the only adult caring for an infant for long periods of time." Michael looked through the glass door. In the hallway, a nurse held Emily while the baby played happily with a plastic ring. He said nothing. The doctor continued. "I'm not saying you can't hold your granddaughter, but if you have an episode while you're alone with her, the consequences could be dangerous for both of you." Michael barely spoke on the drive home. Anna did not press him. She knew her father hated feeling like a burden. When they reached a quiet stretch of road, he finally spoke. "Anna." "Yes?" Michael looked out the passenger side window. He seemed ready to say something but stopped. Anna glanced at him. "What is it?" He shook his head. "Nothing." She slowed the car slightly. "You don't have to hide things from me." Michael gave her a small smile. "I was only thinking about how quickly she's growing." Anna looked at Emily in the rearview mirror. She's only 8 months old. You blink and suddenly she'll be 18. Anna smiled. Then you'd better take care of yourself so you can be there to see it. Michael did not answer. He turned toward the back seat and watched his granddaughter for a long time. A fear he could not put into words began to settle inside him. 3 days later, a delivery truck stopped outside the house. The driver carried a large cardboard box to the porch. Anna came out of the kitchen and stared at it. "What did you buy?" Michael wiped his hands on an old cloth. "A new car seat for Emily." Anna studied the brand printed on the box. It was one she had researched several times. The frame was stronger, the protective padding was thicker, and its safety ratings were much higher than those of the seat they currently used. It was also expensive. She looked at Michael. "The old one still works." He nodded. "It does, but this one is better." Anna opened the box and carefully removed the pieces. She ran her hand across the thick padding, then looked back at her father. "Where did you get the money for this?" Michael answered casually. "I still had a little put away." Anna did not respond, but she knew he had very little savings left. She quietly walked into his bedroom and opened the drawer where he kept his medication. It was almost empty. Only a few pills remained. Anna stood there for a moment. Then she picked up the prescription lying on the table, returned to the porch, and placed it gently in front of him. "You haven't bought this month's medication." Michael fell silent. Anna looked directly at him. "You used your medication money to buy the car seat, didn't you?" Michael let out a slow breath. He knew there was no point in denying it. "A few days without the medicine won't hurt." Anna sat beside him and took one of his rough, calloused hands between hers. "I know how much you love Emily, but she needs a healthy grandfather more than she needs an expensive car seat." Michael looked toward the crib. Emily lay inside, waving her tiny hands in the air and laughing at nothing in particular. His expression softened. "I just wanted her to be a little safer." Anna lowered her head. The man sitting beside her had spent his entire life giving up his own share first. Once he had done it for her. Now he was doing it for Emily. Anna rested her head gently against his shoulder. "Please don't hide things like this from me again. I don't want to open your medicine drawer and wonder whether you've gone without something because of us." Michael patted her hand. "All right, I promise." Anna smiled. She knew there was a good chance he would break that promise. But she also understood that some fathers spent so many years living for their children that they eventually forgot how to keep anything for themselves. Michael and Anna installed the car seat together in the driveway. He read every line of the instructions. He fastened the straps, then unfastened them, then tested them again. Anna stood beside him, amused. "You've checked it 3 times." Michael was not satisfied yet. He pulled on every strap, tested the headrest, and pressed down on the base before finally nodding. "It's secure." Anna looked at him. "You worry more than I do." Michael smiled, still watching Emily. "That's what grandfathers do." Anna said nothing. She simply looked at her father. For a moment, she felt completely at peace. Whenever she had to leave the house for work, there was one thing that always reassured her. Emily had a grandfather who loved her with everything he had left to give. That same afternoon, in an office tower in downtown Portland, Sophia Bennett sat at the far end of a long conference table. She was 35 years old, a gifted architect known for her precision and the impossible standards she set for herself. Sophia was not the kind of person who drew a few effortless lines and produced a perfect design. She was good because she was willing to start over more times than anyone else. When her coworkers went home, she often remained at her desk, adjusting the smallest details. When others looked at a building and saw glass, concrete, and steel, Sophia imagined the people who would live there, work there, and grow old within its walls. That afternoon, her director placed a blue folder in front of her. The board approved it. Sophia looked down at the appointment letter bearing her name. In 10 days, she would move to Seattle and lead the design team for one of the company's largest development projects. It was the opportunity she had worked toward for nearly a decade. A higher salary, a position with real authority, and for the first time, the chance to lead a project that could carry her own creative signature. Her director smiled. "Congratulations, Sophia." The room filled with applause. David Cole, a colleague who had worked beside her for years, stepped forward and shook her hand. "Looks like it's finally your turn." Sophia smiled. "You make it sound as though I've been waiting my entire life." David glanced at the folder in her hands. "Haven't you?" Sophia did not deny it. The company had already arranged an apartment for her in Seattle. Her plane ticket had been booked. Most of her belongings were packed into boxes. Her co-workers were planning a farewell dinner for the following weekend. In 10 days, she would leave Portland and begin the life she had spent years building toward. After the meeting, Sophia stood in front of the building's wide glass window and watched the traffic moving far below. She had no way of knowing that in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, a grandfather had just traded his medication money for the safety of his granddaughter. She did not know that only a few days later, on an ordinary road, her life would collide with theirs. And after that moment, none of them would ever be able to return to the lives they had known. The following Sunday morning dawned clear and bright after several days of rain. Anna woke before sunrise. She opened the kitchen window, and the cool September air carried in the scent of wet grass and maple leaves. Emily was still asleep in her crib, one arm wrapped around the small stuffed bear Michael had sewn from leftover pieces of fabric. Anna smiled and bent down to kiss her daughter's forehead. "Wake up, sleepyhead. We're going to see Grandpa today." Emily opened her eyes, stared at her mother for a moment, then broke into a wide, dimpled smile. The sound of her laughter filled the room. Across town, Michael had been awake since 5. He swept the porch, wiped down the wooden chairs, and placed a small vase of white daisies in the center of the dining table. Then he went into the kitchen and began making the soup Anna had loved since she was a child. His daughter was busy now. She had work, a baby, bills, and a life that demanded more from her than she ever admitted. She could not visit as often as she once had. So whenever she came home, Michael prepared as though he were expecting royalty. A little before 9, he heard a car pull into the driveway. He moved toward the front door faster than his doctor would have approved. The moment Emily saw him, she kicked her legs excitedly and reached out with both hands. Michael took her into his arms. "Well, there she is. My favorite doctor." Emily grabbed his collar and laughed. Anna watched them and smiled. "I'm beginning to think she misses you more than she misses me." Michael lifted the baby a little higher. "That's because Grandpa knows how to treat a lady." "You mean you spoil her?" Michael pretended not to hear. He carried Emily around the yard, showing her the flower pots, the bird feeder, and a yellow butterfly resting on the fence. Emily understood none of it, but every time Michael pointed at something, she laughed as though he had shown her the most wonderful thing in the world. Near noon, Anna went into the kitchen. Michael followed her. "Let me cook." "No, you're sitting down today. I've been making soup longer than you've been alive, and I've been cleaning up after you for almost 30 years. Michael raised an eyebrow. "That is a terrible exaggeration." Anna handed him a wooden spoon. "Fine, stir." They cooked side by side while Emily sat in her stroller near the doorway, making soft, happy sounds whenever one of them looked her way. For a few hours, the little house felt whole again. There was soup simmering on the stove. There was laughter in the kitchen. There was a baby banging a wooden spoon against the tray of her stroller. And for that afternoon, grief seemed to loosen its grip on the family. After lunch, Michael sat in his old chair by the window. Emily crawled across the rug and pulled herself onto his lap. She placed one tiny hand against his cheek and studied the lines in his face. Michael looked at her for a long moment. His eyes suddenly filled. He turned his head before Anna could see, but she had already noticed. "Dad?" He cleared his throat. "What? What is it?" Michael smiled. "Nothing." He looked down at Emily. "She's growing too fast." Anna did not answer. She knew there were moments when her father was not only looking at a granddaughter, he was looking at time itself, at everything it had taken from him, and at everything he was still afraid it might take. By late afternoon, Anna began gathering Emily's things. Michael carried the diaper bag to the car while she folded the baby's blanket. He carefully placed Emily in the new car seat and fastened the straps. Then he checked them. Once, twice, a third time. Anna leaned against the open door and watched him. "You know the straps aren't going to loosen just because you stop looking at them." Michael pulled on the harness again. "Humor an old man. You're not old." "That's not what my knees say." He adjusted the padding around Emily's head, checked the base one final time, then stepped back. "There. Now it's right." Emily kicked her feet and made a soft sound. "Gah!" Michael froze. The baby stared at him. Then she tried again. "Gah!" It was not quite Grandpa, not yet, but it was close enough. Michael's face lit up. He laughed and the tears came before he could stop them. "Did you hear that?" Anna smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I heard it. She said Grandpa." She almost said Grandpa. Michael leaned through the open door and kissed Emily's forehead. "That counts." Anna hugged him. "We'll come back next weekend." Michael kept one hand on the car door. "All right, I'll be here." Anna got behind the wheel. Michael stood at the edge of the driveway as the car pulled away. Emily's small hand moved behind the rear window. He raised his own hand in return. He remained there long after the car disappeared around the corner. He had no way of knowing that it was the last time he would ever see his daughter alive. Anna drove with one hand resting lightly on the steering wheel. Emily sat behind her, holding the stuffed bear Michael had repaired the night before. One of its ears had come loose, and he had sewn it back on with thread that did not quite match. Anna looked at the bear in the rearview mirror and smiled. "Grandpa's getting better at sewing." Emily made a sleepy sound. Anna turned on the radio. A familiar song began to play. It had been one of David's favorites. Whenever they had driven together, he had sung along badly and with complete confidence. Anna used to laugh and tell him he was ruining the song. He would only sing louder. For a moment, she could almost hear him beside her. She did not sing. She simply listened. Her fingers tapped softly against the steering wheel in time with the music. It had been a long time since she had felt as peaceful as she did that afternoon. On the other side of the city, Sophia left her office carrying 2 boxes of files and rolled drawings. Her co-workers had already started clearing her desk for the move. In 10 days, she would be in Seattle. Her new apartment was waiting. Her position was official. The project she had dreamed about for nearly a decade was finally hers. Her phone rang as she placed the last box in the back seat. It was David Cole. "Don't forget dinner tonight," Sophia smiled. "I haven't forgotten. 7 o'clock. I know. And don't be late. You're the reason we're celebrating." Sophia closed the car door. "I'll go home, change, and meet you there." "That's what you said last time. I was only 20 minutes late." "You were 45 minutes late," Sophia laughed. "Goodbye, David." She ended the call and started the car. As she pulled away, she lowered the window and let the cool air move through the vehicle. For the first time in years, her future felt settled. She had worked for this. She had earned it. Every late night, every rejected design, every project she had rebuilt from the ground up had finally led somewhere. She did not know that the dinner would go on without her. She did not know that the life waiting for her in Seattle was already slipping away. The road through the neighborhood was quiet. Anna slowed as she approached an intersection. In the back seat, Emily had fallen asleep with one hand resting on the stuffed bear. The traffic light ahead turned green. Anna eased the car forward. At that exact moment, a brightly colored ball rolled off the sidewalk and into the street. A little boy, no more than 6 years old, ran after it. His mother shouted his name, but he did not stop. Sophia was approaching from the opposite direction. She saw the child step into the road. There was no time to think, no time to slow down enough, no time to search for a safe choice. If she kept the wheel straight, she would hit him. Sophia turned hard to the left. Tires screamed against the pavement. A horn blared. Anna looked up. For a fraction of a second, the 2 women saw each other through their windshields. Then the world disappeared beneath the sound of metal and breaking glass. Afterward, there was silence, not true silence. Car alarms were sounding. Someone was screaming. Glass was still falling onto the pavement. But for those first few seconds, the people standing nearby seemed unable to move. Then everything happened at once. A man ran from a nearby yard. Someone called 911. Another person pulled the little boy away from the street. His mother dropped to her knees and wrapped both arms around him. He had a scraped elbow and a small cut near his temple. Nothing more. He cried because he was frightened. His mother cried because he was alive. Sophia opened her eyes. The airbag had deployed in front of her. Her ears rang. Blood ran from a cut above her eyebrow. She pushed against the car door until it opened, then stumbled outside. Someone tried to make her sit down. "You're hurt." Sophia did not seem to hear. Her eyes were fixed on the other car. She took one step toward it, then another. Her knees nearly gave way. "No." Her voice was barely audible. "No, no." A man caught her by the arm. "Ma'am, stay back. The paramedics are coming." Sophia shook her head. She could see a woman behind the wheel. She could see that the woman was not moving. And then, from somewhere inside the wreckage, came the cry of a baby. Everyone stopped. A firefighter leaned into the back seat. "There's an infant in here!" The car seat was still locked firmly into place. Its frame was damaged. The padding had shifted, but the harness had held. Emily's face was red with fear, and her small hands opened and closed as she cried. A paramedic climbed into the vehicle and carefully checked the straps before releasing them. She lifted Emily into her arms and examined her from head to toe. A few small scratches, a bruise along one shoulder. But she was breathing normally. She was alert. She was alive. The paramedic looked back at the crushed side of the car and then at the damaged child seat. For several seconds, she said nothing. Finally, almost to herself, she whispered, "Thank God. Someone loved this little girl enough to give her the safest seat they could." Sophia heard the baby crying. Her legs gave way beneath her. She sank onto the pavement and covered her mouth with both hands. She was not crying because she had survived. She was crying because one child had been spared, and because she already understood that another family was about to lose everything. Nearly 30 miles away, Michael sat at his workbench repairing a small wooden toy car for Emily. He had sanded the wheels and was testing one of the axles when his phone began to ring. Michael wiped the sawdust from his fingers and reached into his pocket. He smiled when he saw an unfamiliar local number. Perhaps Anna was calling from someone else's phone. Maybe Emily had finally managed to say "Grandpa" properly. He answered. "Did you two make it home?" The voice on the other end was not Anna's. It belonged to a man. "Sir, is this Michael Carter?" Michael's smile disappeared. "Yes." "Are you related to Anna Miller?" Michael did not answer at first. His hand tightened around the phone. "Yes, I'm her father." There was a pause. A pause long enough for his heart to understand before his mind was ready to hear it. The man spoke again, more gently this time. "Mr. Carter, there's been an accident." Michael stared at the phone in his hand. The tiny wooden toy car slipped from his workbench and hit the concrete floor. One of its wheels rolled slowly into the corner of the room. He barely noticed. "Anna," his voice was almost a whisper. The man on the other end spoke gently. "Sir, I need you to come to St. Vincent Hospital as soon as possible. We need a family member for Ms. Anna Miller." Michael swallowed hard. "Is my daughter hurt?" "What about my granddaughter?" There was a brief silence. "I'm sorry, sir. We'll explain everything when you arrive." The call ended. Michael remained standing in the middle of the workshop. The room suddenly felt unfamiliar. Only moments earlier, he had been sanding the little wooden car he planned to give Emily the following weekend. Now it lay broken on the floor. He slowly bent down and picked it up. One wheel had snapped off. He brushed away the sawdust that clung to the tiny wooden body, set it carefully on the bench, turned off the workshop light, grabbed his keys, and walked outside. He forgot to lock the front door. The drive to the hospital felt longer than it ever had before. Michael never turned on the radio. He never opened the windows. Both hands remained locked around the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. At one red light, the car came to a stop. For the first time in years, Michael bowed his head. His lips moved almost silently. Please let my little girl be alive." He stopped, then whispered again, "If someone has to go, let it be me." The traffic light turned green. He drove on. When he arrived at St. Vincent Hospital, a young nurse was already waiting near the emergency entrance. She looked at the photograph attached to her clipboard, then looked at Michael. "Mr. Michael Carter?" He nodded. "This way, please." She walked quickly through the emergency department. Michael followed without saying a word. Stretchers rolled past them. Doctors called to one another. Monitors beeped endlessly. The sharp scent of antiseptic filled the air. It was an ordinary afternoon inside a busy hospital, but to Michael, it felt as though every sound was slowly closing in around him. The nurse stopped outside a quiet room. A doctor stepped through the doorway and removed his mask. His expression said everything before he spoke. "Mr. Carter," Michael interrupted him. "Where's my daughter?" The doctor lowered his eyes. For several seconds, he couldn't find the words. Then he took a slow breath. "We're so sorry. We did everything we could. But Anna didn't survive." Michael simply looked at him. He didn't blink. He didn't move. He didn't speak. It was as if the words had reached his ears, but never reached his heart. A long silence passed. Then he slowly shook his head. "No." Another shake. "That's not possible." A faint smile appeared on his face, empty, almost childlike. "This morning, she was having breakfast with me." His voice caught in his throat. She said she'd bring Emily back next weekend." He looked at the doctor. "My daughter, she never breaks a promise. You must have made a mistake." The hallway fell completely silent. No one knew what to say. The doctor stepped closer and gently rested a hand on Michael's shoulder. "I'm so sorry." Just 3 words. They were enough. The last fragile thread of hope inside Michael quietly broke. He didn't collapse. He didn't scream. He slowly lowered himself into a chair against the wall. His eyes stared into nothing. The world around him continued moving. Doctors hurried past. Phones rang. Patients spoke. But Michael heard none of it. For the first time since losing his wife, he felt completely alone. A few moments later, a pediatric nurse walked toward him carrying Emily. The little girl had only a few small scratches. The moment she saw Michael, she burst into tears and reached both tiny arms toward him. The nurse knelt beside him. "She's going to be okay. I think she's looking for someone she knows." Michael lifted his trembling hands. Emily immediately buried her face against his chest. Her crying slowly faded. Michael held her tighter than he had ever held anyone in his life. He rested his forehead gently against her soft hair. For a long time, neither of them moved. Finally, he whispered, "I'm here. Grandpa's here. You'll never be alone." Emily wrapped her tiny fingers around one of his. Within minutes, she fell asleep in his arms. Michael remained exactly where he was, holding the little girl in complete silence. Warm tears slipped quietly down his face and disappeared into her blanket. He wasn't crying for himself anymore. He was crying because, in that single afternoon, a little girl had lost her mother, and an old man had suddenly become the only family she had left. Michael remained seated on the bench outside the hospital room. Emily had fallen asleep in his arms. Her tiny hand still held tightly onto one of his fingers, as if letting go would mean losing the last person she had left in this world. A few minutes later, the doctor returned. He quietly sat down beside Michael. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, the doctor broke the silence. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter. We did everything we could." Michael stared ahead without saying a word. His eyes were red with grief, but no tears came anymore. He simply gave a faint nod. After another long silence, the doctor glanced at the sleeping baby. Then he asked gently, "Does Emily have any other family?" Michael lowered his eyes to his granddaughter. He softly brushed a few strands of hair away from her face. Then he answered in a quiet voice, "Her father was killed in action before my daughter gave birth." He paused. "Her paternal grandparents have both passed away." His fingers tightened ever so slightly around Emily's tiny hand. For now, it's just the two of us. The doctor lowered his head respectfully. He didn't offer empty words of comfort. Instead, he placed a reassuring hand on Michael's shoulder. Sometimes silence carried more compassion than words ever could. A few moments later, a nurse approached. "Mr. Carter, if you're ready, you may see Anna one last time." Michael slowly stood up. Holding Emily close against his chest, he walked into the room. Anna lay peacefully beneath a white hospital blanket. She looked as though she were simply asleep. Michael stepped closer. His trembling hand gently brushed her hair away from her face. Then he leaned down and kissed her forehead, just as he had done countless times when she was a little girl with a fever. His shoulders trembled quietly, but no sound escaped his lips. Emily suddenly opened her eyes. She looked at her mother for several long seconds. Then she stretched out both little arms toward Anna, babbling softly, as if asking to be held one more time. Michael closed his eyes. He pulled Emily gently back into his embrace. He didn't have the strength to look any longer. The following morning, soft sunlight filtered through the hospital window. A social worker entered the room carrying a blue folder. She pulled up a chair and sat across from Michael. Her voice was calm and respectful. "Mr. Carter, first I'd like to offer my deepest condolences. There are just a few legal documents regarding Emily that need your signature." Michael nodded quietly. His hand rested gently on Emily's back as she slept. The woman opened the folder. "According to the records, you are Emily's closest living relative. Once these papers are completed, legal guardianship will officially be transferred to you." Michael never looked at the documents. He only looked at his granddaughter for a very long time. Finally, he spoke. "I'll take care of her." His voice grew hoarse. "For as long as I'm able." The social worker fell silent. Her expression softened. She simply nodded and slowly slid the papers across the table. Michael picked up the pen. It was only a signature. But the moment the pen touched the paper, he understood. From that moment on, he was no longer just Emily's grandfather. He would spend the rest of his life trying to become everything Anna no longer could. Late that afternoon, Michael carried Emily out of the hospital. He carefully secured her into the child's safety seat in the back of the car. His hands lingered on the buckle for a few extra seconds. That car seat had been the very last gift Anna ever bought for her daughter. Michael gently brushed Emily's hair aside, then quietly closed the door. The drive home passed in complete silence. Only the soft patter of rain tapped against the windows. When they arrived home, Michael didn't get out right away. He sat behind the steering wheel staring at the front door. Just yesterday, Anna had stood on that porch, smiling as she waved goodbye. Today, he was coming home with only her daughter. Emily stirred softly in her sleep. Michael took a slow, steady breath, then carried her inside. Anna's coat still hung beside the front door. Her shoes were still neatly lined up where she had left them. The vase of white daisies on the dining table was still fresh. Everything remained exactly as it had been. Everything, except the person who had filled the house with warmth. Emily suddenly began to cry. Michael gently laid her on the couch. He opened the small diaper bag Anna had packed. Inside were only a few tiny outfits, 2 baby bottles, a can of formula, a handful of diapers, a pack of baby wipes. and the little teddy bear Emily always held while sleeping. Michael picked up the formula can. He put on his reading glasses, carefully reading every instruction on the label, measuring each scoop, pouring the water, then testing a few drops on the back of his hand. He had watched Anna do this many times, but this was the first time he had ever done it himself. Emily kept crying. Michael looked at the bottle, then at his granddaughter. He wasn't sure if he'd done it right. After a long moment, he looked toward the neighboring house. He hesitated, then quietly carried Emily outside. For the first time in many years, Michael knocked on a neighbor's door to ask for help. A moment later, the door opened. Margaret stood there. She had lived next door for more than 20 years. She had watched Anna grow up without asking a single question. She gently took Emily into her arms. Margaret tested a few drops of the milk on the back of her hand. She added a little warm water, gave the bottle a gentle shake, then handed it back to Emily. Within moments, the baby was drinking peacefully. Margaret walked over to Michael. She adjusted the way he was holding Emily, then quietly said, "Like this. She'll sleep much more comfortably." Michael copied her movements. Only a few minutes later, Emily was fast asleep in his arms. Margaret looked at the two of them for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "I'll stop by tomorrow. If you need anything, just call me." Michael simply nodded in return. It was the only thank you he could manage. The following morning, gray clouds blanketed the sky. The air was cool, carrying the lingering scent of last night's rain. Green Hills Funeral Home quietly welcomed those who had come to say goodbye to Anna. Inside the chapel, the gentle fragrance of white lilies and chrysanthemums filled the room. Anna rested peacefully among the flowers. She looked as though she had simply fallen asleep. Michael stood silently beside her casket. He wore the black suit he hadn't touched in years. His tie sat slightly crooked, perhaps because this morning he had to do everything by himself. Margaret stood a few steps behind him, holding Emily in her arms. The little girl was far too young to understand what was happening. Every now and then, she shifted gently in her sleep before resting peacefully against Margaret's shoulder once again. One by one, friends, neighbors, and former co-workers stepped forward. They laid a flower beside Anna, lowered their heads, then quietly shook Michael's hand. He answered each gesture with nothing more than a silent nod. He could no longer remember how many times he had whispered, "Thank you." The voices around him gradually faded into the distance. The only thing he could still see was Anna, lying peacefully before him. When the service came to an end, the chapel doors slowly closed. Anna's casket was carried to the waiting hearse. The funeral procession quietly made its way toward a small cemetery on a hill just outside town. The sky remained heavy with clouds. A gentle wind stirred the trees lining the road. No one spoke. There simply weren't any words left. At the cemetery, family and friends gathered around Anna's final resting place. The pastor offered his final prayer. Michael stood with his head bowed, his hands folded tightly together. Not once during the ceremony did another tear fall from his eyes. Not because his grief had grown lighter, but because some losses become too deep for tears alone. When the prayer was over, each person stepped forward, placed a single flower beside Anna's grave, then quietly walked away. Margaret carried Emily to the front. She gently laid a white chrysanthemum beside the headstone. Michael stepped closer. He slowly knelt just enough to brush away a few loose leaves resting on the freshly turned earth. His hand remained there for a long moment. Then he stood, turned away, and walked back without saying a single word. As the afternoon faded, the cemetery slowly fell silent. The last visitors had already gone home. Only the wind remained. A light drizzle began to fall, soft enough to barely be called rain. A gray sedan rolled quietly to a stop outside the cemetery gates. Sophia stepped out, still holding the bouquet of white lilies she had bought that morning. It was the same bouquet she had brought to the funeral home, the same bouquet she had never found the courage to carry inside. She walked slowly along the narrow stone path. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she finally reached Anna's grave, she stopped. For a long time, she simply stood there. The gentle rain settled over the bouquet in her hands. She looked at the name engraved on the headstone. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she never cried aloud. After what felt like forever, she carefully placed the white lilies in front of the grave. Her hands lingered on the bouquet for just a few seconds longer, before quietly letting go. The rain continued to fall. No one was there to witness the moment. No one knew whether the drops tracing down Sophia's face were raindrops or tears. She lowered her head one last time, then quietly turned away, without a single apology, without offering a single excuse. She left only the bouquet of white lilies behind, resting silently beneath the rain, a promise she would carry in her heart for the next 18 years. That night, Sophia returned to her apartment long after darkness had settled over the city. Moving boxes still lined the living room wall. Each one was carefully labeled for a room in her new apartment in Seattle. Bedroom, kitchen, books, blueprints. Everything was packed. Everything was ready. In just 1 week, she was supposed to begin the job she had spent years working toward. Sophia stood silently in the middle of the room. Her black coat was still soaked from the rain. Tiny drops of water fell from the hem onto the wooden floor. She didn't take it off. She didn't even turn on the lights. She simply stood there, looking at the boxes. Only a few days earlier, they had filled her with excitement. They had represented a fresh start, a new chapter. Now, they felt as though they belonged to someone else, someone she no longer recognized. The silence was broken by the sound of her phone. The screen lit up with a familiar name, David Cole. Sophia stared at it. She didn't move. She let the phone ring until it finally went quiet. Less than a minute later, a message appeared. "Everyone's worried about you. Call me whenever you're ready." Sophia read the message, then quietly turned her phone face down on the table. She knew David wasn't calling to talk about work. He only wanted to know if she was all right. But at that moment, she didn't know how to answer, because she wasn't even sure herself. She slowly walked toward the window. Outside, the city was still alive. Cars passed beneath the streetlights. People continued with their evening as though nothing had happened. Life kept moving forward. Only hers had come to a stop. Her eyes settled on a blue document case resting beside the sofa. Inside were her promotion papers, her plane ticket, her employment contract, and the keys to her new apartment in Seattle. Just 1 week ago, those had been the most valuable things she owned. Tonight, she couldn't bring herself to open the case again. Sophia slowly lowered herself onto the floor. leaning against one of the unopened boxes. She closed her eyes, and the moment she did, it all came back. The ball rolling into the street, the little boy running after it, the screech of tires, the crash, and Emily's cries, echoing through the rain. Sophia's eyes flew open. Her breathing became uneven. She buried her face in both hands. For the first time in many years, she was afraid to close her eyes. Sophia remained sitting on the floor. The apartment was wrapped in darkness. Only the glow of the city lights spilled through the window, casting faint shadows across the neatly stacked moving boxes against the wall. Her phone rang again. This time, she answered, but she said nothing. The person on the other end remained silent for a few seconds as well. Then David's voice quietly broke the silence. "Sophia, I'm downstairs." Sophia slowly lifted her head. She walked to the window. David's car was parked beneath the streetlight. He leaned against the driver's door. 2 cups of coffee rested in his hands, their steam still rising into the cool night air. David knew she didn't want to see anyone tonight. But he also knew if he left her alone, she would spend the entire night trapped inside the memory of the accident. Sophia took a slow breath. She slipped back into the coat that was still damp from the rain, then quietly made her way downstairs. David saw her long before she reached him. He didn't ask, "Are you okay?" Because he knew there wasn't a meaningful answer to that question. Instead, he simply held out one of the coffees. "It's still warm." Sophia accepted it. Her hands were so cold, she could barely feel the warmth through the paper cup. They stood side by side, without saying a word. Cars passed by from time to time. Then silence settled over the street once again. Only the soft night breeze remained. After a long while, David finally spoke. "The police contacted me today." Sophia kept her eyes on the coffee in her hands. She didn't answer. David continued, "They're still reviewing the traffic cameras, and they're interviewing everyone who witnessed the accident." Sophia slowly closed her eyes. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "They don't need to." David turned toward her. Sophia spoke quietly. "My car hit hers. That's the only truth that matters." David fell silent. He understood. The weight Sophia was carrying had nothing to do with the law. It was the burden of her own conscience. He gently shook his head. "Sophia, sometimes the truth has more than one side." A faint smile crossed Sophia's face, a smile completely empty of happiness. "Maybe, but the ending only has one." She looked up into the dark sky. Her voice almost disappeared into the night. "A little girl lost her mother." David said nothing more. He knew no words could ease a wound like this. They remained there beneath the street lights until the coffee in their hands had gone completely cold. David glanced at his watch. It was nearly midnight. He tossed the empty coffee cup into a nearby trash bin, then turned back to Sophia. "You should get some rest. Things may look a little different in the morning." Sophia didn't answer. She simply gave a faint nod. David opened the car door, but before getting in, he stopped. "Sophia." She looked up. David studied her for a long moment before speaking. "Don't make any major decisions tonight. Wait until the investigation is finished. At least, let the whole truth come to light first." Sophia lowered her eyes. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "Some truths don't need an investigation. The moment my car came to a stop, I already knew my life would never be the same again." David wanted to say something, but the words never came. Instead, he gently rested a hand on her shoulder. "If you need me, call me anytime." With that, he climbed into his car. The engine started. Moments later, the taillights disappeared into the quiet night. Sophia remained standing alone beneath the streetlight. She didn't sleep that night. She sat beside the window until the first light of dawn slowly crept across the sky. The moving boxes remained exactly where they were. The suitcase was still open. Her plane ticket still rested on the table. Everything was ready for Seattle. Everything, except the person who was supposed to leave. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the window, Sophia finally stood. She picked up the blue document case, slowly opening it. Inside were her promotion papers, her employment contract, the keys to her new apartment. One by one, she laid each document neatly across the table. Then, with quiet care, she gathered them back together and slipped them into a large envelope. She knew she could still board that plane. She could still begin the life she had worked so hard to build. No one would blame her for leaving. No one had the right to ask her to stay. But deep inside, she no longer had the courage to call another city her future. Not while, in this one, a family was still learning how to live with the loss that had begun with her. Sophia quietly changed into fresh clothes, picked up the envelope, and walked out of the apartment. For the first time since the accident, she didn't drive to the crash site. She didn't go to the cemetery. Instead, she drove straight to the office. The office was unusually quiet that morning. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, stretching across the empty workstations. Sophia was the first to arrive. She walked slowly past the desks she had known for years. Everything looked exactly the same. Half-finished blueprints, architectural models neatly displayed on the shelves, the soft hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. Everything was familiar. Only Sophia knew today would be different. She stopped outside the director's office, took a slow breath, then gently knocked on the door. "Come in." Sophia stepped inside. Robert Henderson, the firm's director, looked up from the documents on his desk. A warm smile crossed his face. "I was just about to call you. Seattle must be looking forward to having you." Sophia didn't smile. She quietly placed the large envelope on his desk. Robert's smile slowly faded. His eyes moved from the envelope back to Sophia. "Is something wrong?" Sophia drew a slow breath. Her voice remained calm. "I'm turning down the Seattle position." The room fell silent. For a moment, Robert thought he had misunderstood her. "Sophia, you've spent 4 years working toward this project. You're supposed to leave in just a few days." She gave a gentle nod. "I know, but I can't go." Robert slowly stood up, walking around his desk until he was standing in front of her. "If you need a few more weeks, we can arrange that. Don't make a decision while your heart is carrying this much weight." Sophia quietly shook her head. "This isn't a decision I made overnight. I've thought about it carefully." She paused, then continued softly. "There are some things that if you turn your back on them, you'll never forgive yourself for." Robert looked at her for a long moment. He didn't ask what had happened. He could already see. The woman standing before him was no longer the same person who had walked into this office just 1 week earlier. After a long silence, he picked up the envelope. His voice softened. "This door will always be open if you ever decide to come back. Sophia lowered her head slightly. "Thank you," then quietly walked out of the office. As she stepped into the hallway, she saw David waiting near the elevators. Perhaps he had already guessed. He walked toward her. "You really did it?" Sophia nodded. David glanced toward the closed office door, then back at her. "Seattle was your dream." A faint smile appeared on Sophia's face. A sad one. It was. David didn't know what to say. He understood. Since the day of the accident, some dreams never look the same again. Sophia left the office. She didn't drive home. In truth, she wasn't sure where she was going. Her car drifted quietly through the familiar streets. Then, as she approached an intersection, she instinctively slowed down. It was the same intersection, the place where the accident had happened. Everything looked almost normal again. Traffic flowed steadily through the lights. The signals changed from red to green, just as they always had. The shops along the street had opened for business. There were no ambulances, no shattered glass, no trace of the chaos that had unfolded there only days before. Only a few faint scratches remained along the concrete divider. If you hadn't witnessed it yourself, you would never have guessed that someone's life had ended there. Sophia pulled her car to the side of the road. She didn't get out. Her hands remained resting on the steering wheel. Her eyes never left the intersection. Just then, a young mother crossed the street with her little boy. He couldn't have been more than 6 years old. A colorful ball was tucked beneath his arm. Sophia froze. The sight tightened something deep inside her chest. The mother held her son's hand firmly. Each time he wandered a little too close to the curb, she gently guided him back. The little boy looked up at her and smiled. Then the two of them disappeared around the corner. Sophia watched until they were gone. Slowly, she closed her eyes. If time could somehow be turned back, she knew she would still turn the steering wheel. No child deserved to lose a life for chasing a ball into the street. But that wasn't what haunted her. What haunted her was knowing that in saving one child, another child had lost her mother forever. Sophia lowered her head. Her fingers tightened around the steering wheel. For the first time, she truly understood. Sometimes, you can make the right decision and still carry its pain for the rest of your life. At that very moment, the phone on the passenger seat began to vibrate. Sophia glanced at the screen. Portland Police Bureau. She stared at the name for several seconds, then quietly answered, "Ms. Sophia Morgan? We've completed our review of the traffic camera footage and the accident investigation. If you're available, we'd like you to come to the station this afternoon." Sophia slowly closed her eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'll be there." The call ended. She remained sitting inside the car. She knew, no matter what the investigation concluded, Anna would never come home again. That afternoon, Sophia arrived at the Portland Police Bureau exactly on time. An officer led her into a small interview room. A thick case file rested on the table. Beside it, a computer monitor waited silently. The officer took a seat across from her. He opened the file, then looked up. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Morgan." Sophia gave only a quiet nod. Her hands rested tightly together on her lap. The officer turned the monitor toward her, then pressed play. Traffic camera footage filled the screen. There was no sound, only cars moving steadily through the intersection. For a few ordinary seconds, nothing happened. Then, a colorful ball rolled into the street. Barely a second later, a little boy ran after it. Sophia's car entered the frame. She wasn't speeding. She hadn't run the light. She hadn't crossed into another lane. Everything had been completely normal until the little boy suddenly appeared directly in front of her car. The officer paused the video. He looked at Sophia. At this distance, if you had kept driving straight, the child would almost certainly have been hit. Sophia didn't answer. Her eyes never left the screen. The officer pressed play again. The video showed Sophia instinctively turning the wheel. Her car swerved to the left. At that exact moment, Anna's vehicle entered the intersection from the opposite direction. The two cars collided. The officer paused the footage once more. Silence filled the room. He slowly closed the case file. We've reviewed every traffic camera in the area. We've also interviewed every available witness. He paused for a moment, then continued. We found no evidence that you violated any traffic laws, and no evidence that there was a way to avoid both collisions at the same time. Sophia slowly closed her eyes. The officer placed the investigation report on the table. Based on all of the evidence, this has been officially ruled an unavoidable accident. No criminal charges will be filed. Sophia stared at the report for a long time, but she never reached for it. After what felt like forever, she finally spoke. If you were me, she hesitated, then quietly asked, do you think you could ever forgive the person behind that wheel? The officer fell silent. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out the window. After a long pause, he spoke softly. I honestly don't know. If I were a father who had just lost his daughter, I think it would be almost impossible. He turned back towards Sophia. But if one day, Mr. Carter learns everything that really happened, at the very least, he'll know you didn't choose yourself. You chose to save a child. Sophia lowered her head. Her eyes slowly filled with tears. She gently shook her head. Even so, a little girl still lost her mother. Silence returned to the room. Neither of them spoke again, because they both understood some losses can never be healed by the words printed in an official report. Sophia left the police station as the afternoon slowly faded into evening. The investigation report remained untouched inside the brown envelope resting on the passenger seat. The entire drive home, she never opened it. She didn't need to. Nothing the officer had told her had made the weight in her heart any lighter. Across town, a police cruiser slowly pulled up in front of Michael's small wooden house. Michael was sitting on the front porch. Emily slept peacefully in a small cradle beside him. In his hands, he was carefully sanding a small wooden toy, a little horse. It had taken him nearly 2 days to finish. His hands were no longer as steady as they once had been. Yet every careful stroke of the sandpaper was made with patience. He wanted Emily, when she was old enough, to have her very first toy made by her grandfather's own hands. The sound of the patrol car stopping at the gate made Michael look up. A police officer stepped out. A brown envelope rested beneath his arm. Michael gently placed the wooden horse on the table, then slowly rose to his feet. The officer walked over, lowering his head respectfully. Mr. Carter, we've completed the investigation into the accident. Michael stared at the envelope for a long moment. He didn't reach for it for days. He had been waiting for answers, but now that those answers were finally standing in front of him, he wasn't sure he had the courage to face them. The officer didn't rush him. He simply waited. After a long silence, Michael finally accepted the envelope. He opened it carefully. Inside was the official investigation report, along with several still images taken from the traffic cameras. Michael turned each page slowly. The first image, a ball rolling into the street. The second, a little boy running after it. The third, Sophia's car suddenly turning the wheel. The final image, the collision. Michael stared at the photograph for what felt like forever, so long that even the officer chose not to interrupt the silence. At last, Michael closed the file. His voice was rough. So, he paused. She chose to save the little boy. The officer gave a quiet nod. If she had stayed in her lane, the child would have had almost no chance of surviving. Michael said nothing. He simply lowered his eyes toward Emily, sleeping peacefully beside him. A long silence settled between them. Finally, the officer spoke again. Mr. Carter, Ms. Sophia Morgan never asked us to speak on her behalf. But throughout the investigation, she fully cooperated with us, and she never once tried to avoid responsibility. Michael remained silent. He only gave a faint nod. Moments later, the patrol car slowly disappeared down the street. Michael stayed where he was, alone on the porch. The investigation report rested quietly on the wooden table. A gentle breeze turned one page, then another. Emily stirred softly in her sleep. Michael leaned over, carefully pulling the blanket back over her tiny shoulder. Then his eyes drifted toward the framed photograph beside the window. Anna was smiling, the same gentle smile she had carried since she was a little girl. Michael slowly leaned back in his chair. A single thought quietly crossed his mind. He couldn't help but wonder, if Anna were the one standing here today, would she have been able to forgive the woman behind the wheel? He didn't know the answer, but he knew one thing. His daughter had always chosen compassion long before she chose resentment. Michael slowly closed his eyes. For the first time since losing Anna, his heart held more than grief. It held a question that would stay with him for many years to come. A few days later, Sophia found herself driving back to the quiet little street where Michael lived. Her car came to its usual stop across the road. On the passenger seat rested the same white envelope. Inside, there was still only a single sentence. "I'm sorry." She had carried that letter with her for days, yet she had never found the courage to deliver it. Sophia sat behind the steering wheel for a long time. Her eyes remained fixed on the small wooden house across the street. She had lost count of how many times she had told herself, "This time, I'll do it." But every single time, fear won. Just then, Emily's cries drifted out from the front porch. Sophia slowly looked up. Michael was walking back and forth with Emily in his arms. He gently rocked her, softly patted her back, then stopped to check the bottle he had prepared. But Emily continued to cry. Her tiny eyes were red. Her little hands reached helplessly into the air, as though searching for the arm she missed most. Michael tried again. He softly hummed to her, shifted her onto his other shoulder, walked a little farther. Nothing worked. Today, Margaret had gone into town to buy diapers and baby formula. For the first time in hours, Michael was completely alone with Emily. The longer she cried, the more helpless he became. He glanced around the quiet neighborhood, almost as if hoping someone, anyone, might appear. Sophia watched from across the street. Her fingers slowly tightened around the envelope. She knew she shouldn't be there. She had no right to step into their lives. But every cry from the little girl made it harder to stay where she was. Finally, Sophia opened the car door. She slowly crossed the street. When she was only a few steps from the front gate, she stopped, then quietly called out, "Sir!" Michael turned around. For the first time, their eyes met. Sophia lowered her head slightly. Her voice trembled. "Please, let me help with the baby." Michael looked at the unfamiliar young woman standing before him, then looked down at Emily, who was still crying in his arms. He said nothing. Sophia spoke again, very softly. "I know how to comfort babies." It wasn't an attempt to convince him. It sounded more like a heartfelt plea. Michael lowered his eyes to Emily. She had cried until her tiny voice had become hoarse. He let out a quiet sigh. Not because he completely trusted the stranger before him, but because he truly didn't know what else to do. After a few silent seconds, he gently placed Emily into Sophia's arms. Sophia received the little girl with both hands. Every movement was slow, careful, as though she feared that even the slightest sudden motion might startle her. Emily was still sobbing. Sophia didn't rush to quiet her. She simply adjusted the baby's position, resting Emily's head gently against her shoulder. One hand softly stroked her back, the other carefully supported her neck. Then, she began to rock her ever so gently, without saying a word. Only a quiet, wordless melody escaped her lips. Less than a minute later, Emily's cries began to fade. She hiccuped softly a few times, then quietly nestled her face against Sophia's shoulder. A few minutes later, she was asleep. Michael stood there in silence. His eyes moved from Sophia to Emily, then back again. After a long while, he finally spoke. "You're very good with her." Sophia looked down at the sleeping little girl. A faint, almost heartbreaking smile touched her lips. "It's not that I'm especially good." She gently brushed a few strands of hair away from Emily's forehead. "Children simply need to feel they're being held close." Michael didn't say another word. He simply gave a quiet nod. For the first time in many days, the small front yard was no longer filled with Emily's cries. Only the soft breeze drifting through the trees and two strangers standing together in the stillness of a quiet afternoon. Emily slept peacefully. Her tiny fingers were still loosely clutching the fabric of Sophia's coat, as though letting go might make that feeling of safety disappear. A gentle smile appeared on Sophia's face. She carefully started to hand Emily back to Michael, but the moment she shifted, Emily frowned in her sleep. Her little lips trembled. Sophia immediately stopped moving. She softly patted the baby's back. Within seconds, Emily settled once again. Michael had watched everything. A faint smile slowly crossed his face. It was the first genuine smile he had worn in many days. "I think she likes you." Sophia looked down at the sleeping little girl. Her voice was almost a whisper. "Maybe she just misses her mother." Michael fell silent. He looked at Emily, then quietly nodded. "Yeah, I think you're right. A gentle breeze drifted through the yard. The leaves overhead rustled softly. For a brief moment, the little front porch felt strangely peaceful. After a while, Michael pulled a wooden chair closer. Please, have a seat. Sophia hesitated. Thank you. She sat down carefully, making sure not to wake Emily. Michael poured her a glass of warm water, then placed it gently on the table beside her. Thank you. I've been trying to learn how to take care of her. He let out a quiet, self-conscious smile. Raising a baby is much harder than I ever imagined. Sophia looked at Michael, then at Emily. She spoke softly. You're doing better than you think. Michael slowly shook his head. No. Anna was the one who knew exactly what to do. His eyes lowered. His voice grew quieter. She never let Emily cry this long. Sophia gently tightened her grip around the little girl. Every word Michael spoke felt like another weight settling onto her heart. Yet she never interrupted him. Michael watched Emily sleeping peacefully. A faint smile returned to his face. She's just like her mother. Even when she sleeps, she always holds on to the person carrying her. Sophia glanced down. It was true. Emily's tiny fingers were still wrapped around the edge of her coat, holding on tightly. A feeling Sophia had never known before quietly filled her heart. She had never been a mother, yet at that moment, she found herself wishing she could hold the little girl just a little longer. Just then, the sound of a car echoed from the end of the street. Michael looked up. A quiet breath of relief escaped him. Margaret's back. Sophia slowly stood, carefully placing Emily back into Michael's arms. The little girl remained fast asleep, never even stirring. Sophia lowered her head politely. I'll be going now. Michael gave a gentle nod. Thank you. If you hadn't come today, I honestly don't know what I would have done. Sophia offered only the faintest smile, then quietly turned and walked away. The white envelope was still tucked safely inside her coat. She had come there to apologize, but in the end, she still couldn't bring herself to say the words. Sophia had barely turned to leave when Emily suddenly stirred in her sleep. The little girl slowly opened her eyes. Her tiny lips trembled. Then she burst into tears once again. Michael quickly lifted her into his arms. He gently rocked her, softly patted her back. But Emily kept reaching toward Sophia. Her tiny arms stretched out, as if she didn't want the young woman to leave. Sophia stopped. She turned around. Emily's cries only grew louder. Michael looked at his granddaughter, then at Sophia. After a brief hesitation, he spoke softly. I think she wants you to hold her. Sophia stood there for a few seconds, then quietly walked back. She gently took Emily into her arms. Almost immediately, the crying stopped. Only a few soft hiccups remained. Then Emily peacefully rested her head against Sophia's shoulder. Michael watched in silence. After a long moment, the corners of his lips softened ever so slightly. It wasn't quite a smile, more like the quiet relief of someone who had finally stopped feeling helpless. He spoke gently. She really likes you. Sophia looked down at Emily. She gently brushed a few strands of hair away from the little girl's forehead. She didn't say a word. The front yard became quiet once again. Only the gentle breeze whispered through the trees. Just then, Margaret's car slowly pulled into the driveway. Several shopping bags rested in her hands. She stopped in surprise. A young woman she had never seen before was holding Emily. Michael slowly walked over, his voice calm. "She helped me comfort Emily." Margaret looked to Sophia. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. "Thank you, dear. Emily has been missing her mother so much these past few days. She's been very hard to comfort." Sophia gave a gentle nod. "Yes, ma'am. Emily is a wonderful little girl." Margaret smiled warmly. "What's your name?" Sophia froze. Her fingers tightened slightly around the little blanket wrapped around Emily. She looked at Michael, then back at Margaret. Her lips parted. "My name is..." At that very moment, the phone inside Sophia's coat began to ring. The sound broke the silence. The screen lit up. David calling. Sophia flinched slightly. She quickly silenced the phone, then carefully placed Emily back into Michael's arms. The little girl remained fast asleep, without waking. Sophia lowered her head politely. "Please excuse me." With that, she quietly turned and walked away. The white envelope remained tucked safely inside her coat. The letter of apology still hadn't found its way into Michael's hands. Margaret watched Sophia disappear down the street, then softly said, "What a kind and respectful young woman." Michael remained silent. His eyes followed Sophia until her car vanished at the end of the street. He couldn't explain why, but something deep inside him quietly whispered that this wouldn't be the last time their paths would cross. Over the next several days, Sophia no longer sat quietly inside her car. Every afternoon after work, she stopped by Michael's little wooden house. At first, only for a few minutes, she would stand near the gate, spend a little time with Emily, then quietly leave. Michael never asked many questions. He simply assumed the young woman had a special love for children. Emily, however, was different. The moment she saw the familiar car pull up outside, her face would light up. Her tiny arms would wave excitedly towards Sophia. Some days, Sophia had barely stepped into the yard before Emily was already reaching out to be held. Whenever Michael saw it, the heaviness in his heart seemed to ease, if only a little. One afternoon, Margaret had gone to visit a friend. Michael decided to repair the old fence in the front yard. Emily sat quietly in her stroller beneath the shade of a tree. Just then, Sophia arrived. Emily immediately burst into happy little giggles. Her tiny hands tapped excitedly against the stroller. Sophia bent down and gently lifted her into her arms. Michael was finishing the last section of the fence. Suddenly, the hammer slipped from his hand. It fell to the ground. As he bent down to pick it up, he instinctively pressed a hand against his chest. His face turned pale. Sophia noticed immediately. She carefully placed Emily back into the stroller, then hurried over. "Are you all right?" Michael forced a small smile. "I'm fine. Just the same old heart acting up." He reached for the hammer again, but Sophia was already faster. She picked it up, then gently supported his arm. "Please go inside and rest. I'll finish this for you." Michael slowly shook his head. "I can't let you do that. You're a guest." Sophia looked at the unfinished fence, then at Michael's hand, still trembling slightly. She remained quiet for a moment, then softly said, "If Anna could see you like this, she'd be worried about you." Michael froze. It was the first time anyone had spoken Anna's name in front of him. Yet somehow, the words didn't reopen his wound. They simply made him miss his daughter even more. He stood there in silence for a long time. Finally, He gave a quiet nod. "All right, I'll listen to you." Sophia helped Michael over to the wooden chair on the porch. She poured him a glass of warm water. Only after the color slowly returned to his face did she pick up the hammer and continue repairing the unfinished fence. Michael watched quietly, the silhouette of the young woman beneath the golden afternoon sunlight unexpectedly reminded him of Anna when she was little. Whenever she saw him fixing the fence or trimming the trees in the yard, she would always run over, smiling brightly. "Let me help you, Dad." Michael slowly closed his eyes. An old memory quietly returned. When he opened them again, the person standing in front of him was no longer Anna, but a young woman he barely knew, quietly finishing the work he could no longer do. Michael let out a slow breath. A strange feeling quietly settled in his heart. He still didn't know who she was, and he couldn't explain why. But every time she appeared, the little yard no longer felt quite as lonely. About 2 weeks later, one afternoon, Sophia stopped by Michael's little wooden house, just as she always did. She spent a little time playing with Emily, helped Michael water the flowers on the front porch, then hurried off to make it to a meeting at work. Within moments, her car disappeared at the end of the street. No one noticed that the cream-colored scarf she always wore had been left draped over the back of the wooden porch chair. Later that afternoon, Margaret stepped outside. She spotted the scarf, carefully picking it up. "Looks like the young lady forgot this." Michael looked up. "She'll probably come back for it next time." Margaret smiled. "Or I could drop it off at her office." Michael looked a little surprised. "You know where she works?" Margaret nodded. "I do. I asked her the other day. I figured if Emily ever needed anything, we might need to ask that sweet girl for a little help someday." Michael gave a small nod. "That makes sense." Margaret looked down at the scarf again, trying to remember. "Oh, her name was..." She paused for a moment, then quietly said, "Sophia Morgan." The world seemed to fall completely silent. Michael remained seated on the wooden chair, his eyes fixed on the scarf in Margaret's hands. For a moment, he thought he had heard the wrong name. His voice trembled. "What did you say her name was?" Margaret looked at him, puzzled. "Sophia Morgan." "Is something wrong?" Michael didn't answer. He slowly stood up, walked into the house. A few moments later, he returned carrying the brown envelope the police had given him. He carefully opened it, turning to the first page of the investigation report. There, printed in the upper corner, were the words he would never forget. Driver, Sophia Morgan. Michael stood frozen. His eyes slowly moved from the report to the cream-colored scarf still resting in Margaret's hands. In that single moment, every memory from the past few weeks rushed back at once. Emily sleeping peacefully in Sophia's arms, the young woman quietly finishing the fence he couldn't complete, the glass of warm water she had placed beside him, and the gentle words she had spoken. If Anna could see you like this, she'd be worried about you. Everything suddenly made sense. The scarf slowly slipped from Michael's hand, falling silently onto the wooden porch. He never even noticed. Margaret stepped closer. Concern filled her voice. "Michael, are you all right?" A long time passed before Michael slowly closed his eyes. A heavy breath escaped him. His voice was barely audible. "It was her. Margaret stared at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" Michael didn't answer. He simply looked toward the end of the street, where Sophia's car had disappeared only minutes earlier. For the first time, he realized the woman who had brought him the greatest pain of his life was also the one who had quietly brought warmth back into his home. That night, Michael barely slept. Sophia's cream-colored scarf still rested on the wooden table. Beside it lay the investigation report for hours. He sat quietly by the window, his eyes drifting from the scarf to Anna's photograph, then to little Emily sleeping peacefully in her crib. 3 images, each pulling at his heart in a different direction. One was his daughter. Another was the little granddaughter who still needed a mother's love. And standing somewhere between them was the woman who had unintentionally taken Anna away, yet had quietly brought peace back into Emily's life. Michael slowly closed his eyes. He had never imagined that one day, the hardest battle he would ever fight would be the one inside his own heart. The next morning, right on time, just as she had every day before, Sophia returned. The letter of apology still rested on the passenger seat. She stepped out of the car, believing it would be another ordinary visit. But the moment she reached the gate, she stopped. Michael was already there. He wasn't sitting on the porch. He wasn't watering the flowers. He wasn't holding Emily. He simply stood there, quietly waiting, as though he had been expecting her. The moment Sophia met his eyes, her heart tightened. For the first time, she knew he had found out. She slowly walked toward him. Every step felt impossibly heavy when only a few feet remained between them. She stopped. Neither of them spoke. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves above. Finally, Michael broke the silence. His voice was calm, yet rougher than usual. "Your name is Sophia Morgan." He paused, then quietly asked, "Isn't it?" Sophia slowly closed her eyes. The hand holding the envelope trembled. Then she gave a small nod. "Yes, it is." There were no excuses, no explanations, no attempt to defend herself. She simply lowered her head, holding the worn envelope so tightly that the edges had begun to crease. After a long silence, she slowly held it out toward Michael, her voice barely steady. "I wrote this letter the day the accident happened. I've brought it here every time I came, but I never found the courage to give it to you." Michael quietly accepted the envelope. He didn't open it. He simply looked at it, the folded corners, the worn edges, the countless signs of being carried, day after day, without ever being delivered. He understood. This wasn't a letter written yesterday. It had been waiting, just as long as they had. Sophia drew in a slow, trembling breath. Tears quietly rolled down her face. For the first time since Anna's death, she stopped trying to hold them back. "I don't expect you to forgive me, and I would never ask you to forget what happened." Her voice broke. She struggled to continue. "I just don't want to spend the rest of my life running away anymore." Sophia kept her head lowered. Tears quietly fell onto the envelope she still held with both hands. Michael looked at her for a long time. Then slowly, he opened the letter. Inside, there was only a single sentence. "I'm sorry. Nothing more. No excuses, no explanations. Just 2 simple words." Michael gently ran his fingers across the paper. Only then did he notice several spots where the ink had blurred. He couldn't tell whether it had been rain, or tears. He carefully folded the letter again, then looked back at Sophia for a long moment before finally asking, "Why?" He paused. "After you found out I was Anna's father, did you keep coming back?" Sophia took a slow, trembling breath. Her voice shook. "At first, I only wanted to apologize. Then I met Emily, and I met you." She stopped, fighting back her tears, but they continued to fall. "Every time I tried to walk away, I couldn't stop thinking about the two of you. I know I'll never be able to give back what you've lost. But if there was anything at all that I could do, even if it was only holding Emily for a little while, or bringing you a glass of water, I wanted to do it." Michael stood silently, looking at the young woman before him. He no longer saw the driver from the accident. He saw someone who had been carrying guilt inside her heart every single day. Slowly, he stepped closer, then gently placed the letter back into Sophia's hands. His voice was quiet. "Keep it." Sophia slowly looked up. Her eyes were red with tears. Michael glanced toward Anna's photograph inside the house, then softly said, "I used to believe that if I ever met the driver again, I would never forgive her." He fell silent for a long time, then continued, "But I also know my daughter. If Anna had seen everything you've done for Emily and for me, she would never want her father to spend the rest of his life trapped in hatred." Sophia broke down. She covered her mouth, trying to hold back her sobs, but she couldn't. Michael looked at her. The anger that had once filled his eyes was gone. Only exhaustion remained, and peace. He spoke gently. "Forgiveness doesn't mean I've forgotten Anna. It simply means I'm not willing to lose another good person." Sophia stood frozen, unable to say a single word. Michael took one final step toward her. He gently rested his hand on her shoulder. For the first time, he called her something different. His voice was warm, almost like a father speaking to his own daughter. "Don't apologize anymore." A faint, bitter-sweet smile appeared on his face. "You've apologized enough, my child." Sophia broke down. The tears she had held back for so many weeks could no longer be contained. She lowered her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." Michael gently shook his head. "No, you don't have to thank me." He slowly turned toward the photograph of Anna beside the window. The warm afternoon sunlight rested softly upon her smiling face. A gentle smile appeared on Michael's lips. His voice was quiet, almost as if he were speaking to his daughter. "I believe you would have agreed with my decision." A soft breeze drifted through the yard. The leaves rustled gently overhead. Just then, a bright little laugh echoed from inside the house. Both Michael and Sophia turned at the same time. Emily was standing inside her crib, holding onto the railing, looking at them with the biggest smile on her tiny face. Sophia quickly wiped away her tears, almost without thinking. She hurried inside and gently lifted Emily into her arms. The little girl wrapped both arms tightly around Sophia's neck, as though she had no intention of letting go. Michael stood quietly in the doorway, watching them. The corners of his lips slowly softened. This time, it truly was a smile, not because he had forgotten his pain, but because he finally understood. Emily would no longer grow up in a home filled only with loss. Michael slowly walked over. Stopping beside Sophia, he gently rested one hand on her shoulder. then reached out and softly brushed Emily's hair away from her forehead. The golden evening light embraced the three of them, warm, peaceful, as if somewhere nearby, Anna was still watching over them, quietly, with a smile. Several years later, the little wooden house still stood beneath the maple trees in the front yard, but it no longer felt quiet. The sound of a little girl's laughter now filled the garden. Emily had grown. She ran happily across the grass, holding a small wooden horse in her arms. It was the very same toy Michael had carved for her when she was just a baby. Time had left its mark. The paint had faded. One of the little ears had chipped away. But to Emily, it was still her greatest treasure. "Grandpa!" she laughed as she ran toward Michael, throwing her little arms around him while he carefully trimmed the flowers in the garden. Michael smiled gently, running his hand across her hair. "Easy now. Don't run too fast," Emily giggled, then turned toward the house. "Mom!" Sophia stepped out onto the porch. Still wearing her kitchen apron, she smiled warmly. "Dinner's ready." Emily hurried over, taking Sophia's hand, then reached back for Michael. "Come on, Grandpa." Michael looked at the two of them. A gentle smile slowly appeared on his face. He quietly stood up. The three of them walked toward the house together. Just before stepping inside, Michael's eyes fell upon Anna's photograph beside the window. He stopped for a moment. A soft smile touched his face. He quietly whispered, "I miss you." For a brief moment, he simply stood there, still looking at her photograph, then softly added, "But I'm not alone anymore." Michael stepped inside. The wooden door slowly closed behind them. Emily's laughter continued to echo from inside the house, warm, peaceful, just like a home had finally become whole again.